The United States has seen troop movement that indicates Israel soon could expand its operation in the southern Gazan city of Rafah. That's according to two U.S. officials who say the IDF has amassed enough personnel on the edge of the city to go through with its plan. Meanwhile, Palestinians are following Israel's evacuation orders. The UN says nearly 450,000 people have fled Rafah just in the past week. More than 1 million people had sought refuge there over the last 7 months. And in northern Gaza, Israeli troops are fighting Hamas terrorists in areas that Israel had said it cleared. NBC News chief foreign correspondent Richard Engel reports from Jerusalem.
Israel thought it had defeated Hamas in northern Gaza, but the militants have regrouped and are now fighting from the rubble. Once the government of Gaza had triggered a war when they stormed into Israel and carried out a massacre, Hamas has become an insurgency. And as the United States learned in Afghanistan and Iraq, insurgencies can last for decades. In southern Gaza, Israel is expanding military operations in Rafah, despite warnings from President Biden about the risk to civilians. Israel claims Hamas has 4 battalions of fighters in Rafah and has ordered the evacuation of large sections of the city.
That's the 6th time I evacuate from anywhere I was in. So I feel so lost.
This time, Israel is telling Palestinians to go to an area on the Mediterranean coast. But Palestinians say there's nothing for them there. No tents, no food, no future.
Are we gonna keep living in this ongoing loop?
Our crew found these men packing up pieces of their own bombed-out home so they could build shelters with the debris, while Hamas fighters are nowhere to be seen. They brought this war to Gaza, but now provide no services and no help. They've gone underground, ready for a long insurgency, apparently at any cost.
Hi, Richard. Thank you so much. Richard Engel joins us now. Thank you so much for being with us, Richard. Richard, I'd love for you, if you could, provide some context, because we've seen the suffering of the Israeli people on October 7th. We've seen the suffering of the Gazan people since that time. And for good reason, there's been a lot of focus on the civilian casualties in Gaza. But it has at times papered over just the heinous nature of Hamas itself, not just as a terrorist organization, but also as rulers of tyrants over the past 15 years. My word, not yours. But there's a New York Times article that talks about a sort of a Stasi, almost secret police, where they brokered absolutely no dissent, complete authoritarians, and would actually follow young people, older people around, digging into the most personal parts of their lives and using it against them. It just brutal. And also that, as you know, at the time of the attacks, Hamas was not even popular among the majority of people in Gaza. So you have the Gazan people really no good guys for the Gazan people right now. Could you explain that to our viewers a little bit better, following up on this New York Times article?
Yes, absolutely. I've seen quite a bit of that myself. Now it's impossible for foreign journalists to get into Gaza because Israel is not allowing access. But I used to go to Gaza regularly, and Hamas was once elected. So at one stage, people did give them an opportunity because they were not comfortable with the previous Palestinian Authority. They wanted change. So they did vote them in. But then Hamas took over in a violent coup, killed the opposition, and were ruling through terror. Whenever I had encounters with Hamas, or the Palestinians that I was working with in Gaza had encounters with Hamas, they were frightening experiences. You didn't want Hamas coming to your door and asking questions about you or asking questions about your reports. You were afraid of them. The Palestinians I worked with wanted as little to do with Hamas as humanly possible. And yes, they kept track on people, they kept files on people, and they ruled through fear. They barely provided services. They were the government, but mostly they were a military organization. They liked to talk about their weapons. They like to show off their weapons. They like to show off their fighters, generally masked. And they left the basic running of Gaza to groups like the UN. Now that is no longer working. Hamas has moved underground, and they're just exclusively a militant organization that seems to be preparing for a long guerrilla war. There's so much talk about Yahya Sinwar. He's now kind of the Osama bin Laden. I saw him when I was in Gaza before, and I can tell you a little bit about what that experience was like.
Yes.
I was in Gaza covering some of there were clashes at the time. There were often clashes, not on the level of October 7th, but there was often mid to serious level fighting in Gaza. And I was there, we were covering it, we were recording it, and then suddenly there was an excitement. People started noticing something's happening. And I saw a long convoy of cars. Maybe there were 10 or 15 similar cars driving in a convoy to the area where we were, and people started saying, oh, it's Sinwar's coming. He didn't make that many public appearances. So we start trying to get near him so that I could throw him a question, and he got out of the car, and there was a crush, and he had a lot of security with him, and people were pushing and shoving, and I ended up getting shoved more or less right in front of his face. And I asked him a few questions. He answered nothing particularly important, what he said, just about how the Palestinians are going to resist. And then he got back in his car and left. But it was the presence that I noticed that was so different. People were excited to see him, excited that he was making this appearance, but also very much afraid. He was coming out with this huge convoy. It was an event. It wasn't like a normal politician where people come and they're happy to see them and glad handing babies and singing their praises. He arrived, the mood in the room, or we were actually in an open field, the mood in the field changed. There was certainly an era of a sense of menace. While he was there, he had heavy security. I was sort of pushed and shoved as other people were, and then he got in a car and left. And that's kind of the way the Hamas leadership operated. They would come, they would make an appearance, and then they would disappear. They didn't have a great, it seemed, affection for or from the people.
Right. Let me ask you also, Richard, just following up on your report earlier. We've talked, I know you've talked to people in the region, as have I, the Arab leaders that have talked about the possibility of an Arab peacekeeping force backed by the United States and the United Nations in Gaza afterwards. Talk about how the reemergence of hostilities in northern Gaza obviously puts a big question mark over that for any Arab leader who suddenly realizes Israel hasn't conducted a cleanup operation of terrorists as much as they would like us to think, but that actually they may be fighting, if they get involved, they may be fighting an insurgency for years to come.
Well, it seems very likely they would be fighting an insurgency for years and years to come. And the Biden administration keeps telling, and President Biden, and we heard the same thing from the Secretary of State, keeps telling Israel, don't make the same mistakes that we made in Iraq, in Afghanistan. Don't just have a policy of revenge. You need to have a long-term plan. But then they say, OK, we're going to create this ambiguous Arab peacekeeping force. Don't know anything about it. 5 countries were vaguely mentioned that they're going to govern there, I guess, as an occupation authority until there is a new Palestinian authority that is less corrupt and, I guess, less Hamas. That's exactly what the U.S. did in Iraq. That's exactly what the U.S. did in Afghanistan. We called it a de-Baathification process. We had an occupation force there, and then we tried to impose a new government that was cleaner and more to our liking. And it took a decade in Iraq, didn't work, even though the U.S. won every single military battle. It lost the war. And the same thing in Afghanistan. It took 20 years in that case, where the U.S. won every single major battle and then lost the war. So it seems that what the U.S. is talking about here for its long-term plan for Gaza is very similar to the same mistakes that the United States did, in fact, make in those countries, which is to impose an try and defeat an insurgency and then try and stand up some artificial government. I haven't seen a clearer plan so far emerge for what comes next in Gaza, and the hints that we're hearing don't sound very convincing.